I'm Lily Phillips, and today I'm getting ran through by 100 guys.
Now, unless you have been living under a rock, I know you have had to have heard about this whole Lily Phillips fiasco and her OnlyFans adventures of being ran through by 100 men. It's absolutely crazy. It's incredible, the story, not in a good way. We're going to talk about that today. I want to really dig into this. And just for fairness, I decided to take an angle where I didn't watch other people's content about this. I went straight to the source to watch the actual documentary and to formulate my own opinion on how I wanted to talk about this. Because, you know, here on this channel, we talk to reverts, we talk to converts, and people just looking to go deeper into faith. And a lot of you are coming from a worldly view about a lot of things in your life. And one of those things that you may have a worldly view on is promiscuity. And I really want to dig apart Lily as a perfect example, because you may not be someone who's doing OnlyFans. You may not be someone who's being ran through by 100 men on camera, or women for that matter, but you may be someone who is caught up in the throes of sexual sin and of lust and all these things that so many people suffer from and deal with. That becomes a true struggle once you decide that you want to let Jesus Christ back in your life, that he's there knocking on the door to your heart. And so dismantling these ideas and just breaking apart the worldly view of the body and sex is so important in the spiritual journey, in the spiritual battle, and really getting more devout in your Catholic faith. So who is Lily Phillips? This is a 23-year-old Australian woman who decided to, after having a stint in college, she decided to go ahead and start an OnlyFans as a career choice. And it's funny that she uses this as a career and a job, but tries to also play it off as though she's doing this for her own entertainment and for fun. She was promiscuous anyway, so what's the point in having any kind of virtue when she can make money off of herself as an object? And there's so much there to just unpack in that. You know, it's crazy to me how our society today, how hypersexual we've become. And moreover, why is it this thing that the way that we are taught, particularly as women, to show that we're liberated and we are empowered and we're free is by being promiscuous. It's like you get a pat on the back for every man you bed or woman or whatever it is that you like. And it's not that men don't have that same kind of accolades, but the thing is that in our culture for centuries, men have always been extolled for their sexual prowess and virility, and women have always been seen to be more modest and more virtuous in the way that we carry ourselves in genteel society. So in our modern culture, the more you can be like men, the better. But you know, ladies, that is not the way to live. It really isn't. It's so soul-sucking, and it's a lie of society. It's a lie that we can be this way and be truly happy. And we're going to see that with Lily as we break apart this whole entire story. Somebody is lying here. And when you really sit and talk to and listen to these, let's call them what they are, prostitutes, these women who are prostituting and selling themselves for a commodity, for money, you slowly get to see that they aren't as happy as they say they are. Interview after interview, time after time. It's all fun and games at first, and then boom, it comes crashing down when the reality of what they're doing and how they're treating themselves is really shown.
Well, I will say, I have to be honest with myself, because I think it's easy to take the cliche route and say, like, I would do nothing differently. Now, from the wisdom I have acquired, no, I would not change this wisdom for a clean slate. And that's just the God honest truth. But I will say to 20-year-olds, and even to my 20-year-old self, I hate how I allowed myself to just be like used up by men. And that came from a lack of self-worth. I did not understand my value that I was born with. I didn't. And I gave, again, people look at sex differently, but sex is spiritual unification. At the end of the day, I don't care how you spin it. And people that I've shared my body with, when I think about my list, it's repulsive because they didn't deserve it. But that was an outcome of me discounting my worth. And it's disgusting. I hate even having that spiritual tie in any type of way. But yeah, I would absolutely change sexually how I move around. And not even necessarily because of like the societal outcome. It's more so from my
It's like,
self-worth.
what's how it makes you like feel?
Yeah, it doesn't feel good knowing that you gave a sacred part of you to a man that looked at sex with you as taking a piss.
Now, here's the thing. On this channel, we come at things from a standpoint of charity, of understanding, because if we're going to claim to be Christian, we're going to claim to be Catholic, we got to go ahead and make sure that we treat people with dignity and respect, even if they're not doing that for themselves. So this is not going to be a conversation necessarily about chopping this woman down, this young woman who I feel is totally confused and just taken up into the culture. She might have a wake-up call one day and really truly see that what she's doing is absolutely detrimental to her physical health, her mental health, and her spiritual health as well. But the truth is that there are other women just like her who are not in front of cameras, who are not on OnlyFans, who are doing the same exact thing as she's doing, but doing it behind closed doors. Because the world told you all that this is the way to show empowerment, freedom. This is a way to be liberated as a woman. And I'm going to even say for men too, because for every single one of those men that signed up to be with her, every single one of those 100, there is a huge lapse morally in each of them. And the crazy thing is that this young Australian woman will be doing it again, but this time not with 100, but 10 times the amount, 1,000 men. Can you imagine what this woman could be thinking to even think that that was okay, and how destroyed her soul is already? We've got to get into this conversation, baby. But before we do, if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to That Black Catholic Chick. My name is Roxy Beckles. Here on this channel, we talk to reverts and converts about how you can get deeper in your faith and become more devout when Jesus Christ calls you by knocking on your heart. So honey, open that door and first go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now. Click that button, hit the like and all that stuff. You know, I love to hear your thoughts. Make sure that you add your comments down below as you're watching this video. If it hits you, honey, go ahead and share it. If you want to go ahead and support the apostolate that I have going on here, honey, come on and join the channel as a member. There's a join button right where the subscribe button used to be once you go ahead and subscribe, and you'll get access to some extra videos. I'm doing this vlog style thing where I sit and talk to my audience, tell you guys what I'm doing next on the channel, share my walk in faith and all that stuff. You definitely want to see that, and some more content as well that we don't show on the public side. So go ahead, smash that button to join to support the apostolate. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, we're not going to watch the whole thing, but what I wanted to do with this conversation is just to break down parts of the interview that I thought hit me when I heard her say stuff. I was like, there's a little bit of thing we can talk about with virtue here. There's a little stuff we can talk about when it comes to theology and Catholic belief. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
I'm Lily Phillips, and today I'm getting ran through by 100 guys.
People call me anything. Star, escort, OnlyFans girl, anything really. I don't really care. It's not like it bothers me.
So right out the gate at go, our girl is already popping off with the deflection and with just the double speak. And I think it's a lie that we don't care about what other people say. The truth of the matter is that we often say those kinds of things when we perceive that someone is bullying us for being who we think we're trying to be. But it's interesting because for every time that she says that I don't care, later on, I'm gonna show you a place where she actually does care and how this does affect her. And actually something that she says right after that points to the fact that we can clearly see how she sees herself.
You know, I don't drink tea.
Yeah, oh, really?
No, so this is probably gonna taste like shit because I don't really know how to make it, but just good for one thing, me, honestly.
Right there, guys, self-deprecation. Self-deprecation. And you know, it's interesting because there are a number of studies that have been done on how people use self-deprecation. And I've had to actually be very mindful of that kind of talk with myself. There's a ton of studies that say that self-deprecating humor can be indeed detrimental to one's self-image. Self-deprecation often comes from a standpoint when you are internalizing the words of others and you're trying to deflect being shamed or you feel shameful. So you mask it with jokes. But what studies have found is that people who use these tactics often are usually suffering from a ton of anxiety and depression and low self-worth. So every single time you hear her say this, think about that. Or even in the standpoint of yourself, if you're using self-deprecation constantly as a mechanism to try to mask your own self-worth or your own lack of worth or your own lack of esteem, realize the source of that.
Well, I started when I was at university. Very, very tame stuff. Hand bras, underwear, things like that. Because I was at university, I was like, I'm being a anyway, could make a little bit of money.
What do you mean by you were being a anyway?
Like, I was just being a at university. Like, I was just sleeping around with everyone.
But I feel like I know of a lot of girls who have done that at university, but then haven't gone on to become OnlyFans stars.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just was like already very, not proud, like very just okay with doing that. Like, I've just always had quite like a sexual nature.
Yeah.
I just thought I might just make like a couple £100, can get a few rounds of drinks in, stuff like that. Just helps me out a little bit while I'm at university.
Sure.
That right there that she admitted and talked about is so crucial. It's kind of like the pivoting point with so much of the darkness of this interview and just where her life is and things that she's doing to herself that I could not skip over that. When I heard it, it just made my head explode. So in this clip, Lily admits to being promiscuous well before she did any of this OnlyFans stuff and well before this 100-man stunt. And here it is right again. This is where Lily admits that she is a young woman who drank the Kool-Aid of the world and society in telling her that the way that you show that you are completely free and liberated, that you have come into your own as a woman, is by being promiscuous. She drank the Kool-Aid.
I've just always had quite like a sexual nature.
She says that she's always had a sexual nature. Sweetheart, welcome to human nature. We all have a sexual nature. I mean, at the very core, on the biological level and the physiological level, our bodies want to survive. And one of the ways that it survives is through procreation. And I think that's one of the things when we start talking about sexuality, particularly when we look at it from a Christian standpoint, from a Catholic standpoint, is to understand that sex is not a bad thing. It's natural. And the beauty is that God made it. And so much of the conversation, I think, in these Christian circles and where things go wrong for so many people, while you see so much of this rebellion, is this idea that sex is dirty, sex is bad. To even just say the word sex is just like, I have to tread lightly because the YouTube gods might go ahead and demonetize my video and destroy my channel. Or some folks in the audience might have a complete meltdown about something that's biologically natural. When you can wrap your head around that and take out the taboo, I think a greater respect for the act actually grows. A greater understanding of why, when you become someone who is devout in your faith, why you guard it so closely. It's not that you're gatekeeping sexuality or yourself as a sexual being. You have a higher respect and esteem for it. You see, this is where the ideas of purity culture go wrong. It's not about extolling virginity or purity for that matter, but it's understanding that sex is a gift given to us to be able to procreate and co-create with God. It blows your mind when you think about it and puts it in its proper context. So much so in a way that it becomes less taboo and it becomes something that you want to protect, something that you don't want to share with everyone, particularly 100 men. And I think that goes to show for something about in this day and age that so many young people, particularly in this age category, this Generation Z, all of whom have been raised on this social media society, do not understand what it's like to not have a barrage of messaging thrown at them from every angle, from television to news that they watch, to music, to social media, to their peers. It's so detrimental to one's self-image, and always having this constant feeling that you have to keep up with everything and everyone around you, otherwise you're going to be the oddball out. And I think that Lily, in this way, got caught up in that to a point where she just embraced that kind of sick mentality and made it her reality.
I just thought I might just make like a couple £100, can get a few rounds of drinks in, stuff like that. Just helps me out a little bit while I'm at university.
Sure.
I didn't think it would turn into like my whole career. But I think as soon as I started on the platform, I kind of realized, I guess, how much money you can make and also just how much I loved it. I was just like, why am I doing a whole degree? Last week I was like 23 guys all at once, and like some people would be like, you're insane, like I would have to be paid to do that. And I'm like, no, that's just fun to me.
So she's referring to this OnlyFans fiasco as an actual career. And from a Catholic standpoint, I listen to that and I feel so incredibly sad for her. She has made this incredible deduction and decision that her worth as a woman, and the only way for her to have true financial freedom, to make the money that she wants, is by self-objectification. She was essentially already pimping herself up and objectifying herself to men for free or for a couple of drinks. Why not turn this into an enterprise? Another thing that's really interesting when she talks about work in the context of just bringing the Catholic conversation and mindset and virtue behind this is it really disturbs me how she sees this degradation of herself as being work that's dignified. And the reason why I mention this is because, as you guys know, I'm really big on Saint Jose Maria Escrivá and how he talks about work and work being something that's given to us by God, that work, true work that's honest and good, that it can be sanctified. Any kind of work can be sanctified as long as it upholds the dignity of the human and is aligned with what God has given us as far as our talents, and using that to the best to be able to glorify Him. We see in Genesis how Adam is made to toil the earth in a way that makes him be fruitful and to multiply, to provide for his family, to be able to offer sacrifice to our Lord that would be pleasing unto Him. And this idea that everything that we do can be offered up as a prayer. Saint Jose Maria Escrivá talks about an hour of work being an hour of prayer. And that's something that really speaks a lot to me. So to hear her say that the best thing that she can do with her time is to lay on her back and use her own self and her body as a means of objectification and lust and exchange that for money is completely preposterous to me. So even for those of us who are looking at this from the Christian standpoint, from the very Catholic standpoint, it ain't lining up. Money is the root of all evil in this exact case. How much are you willing to sell yourself and your soul just to be a slave to the almighty dollar? You know, it's interesting how scripture always tells us the one thing, right? That money is the root of evil. And actually in the gospel, and I think about this a lot, when we see what's going on in our world today, for instance, give a look at any one of the celebrities who are being called out on trafficking charges or sexual crimes and all these other things, that it's easier for a camel to pass through the head of a needle than it is to get a rich man to heaven. Why is that? Because once you have money, so many people, it sets off a cascade of other vices and addictions and more being fed into. Instead of accumulating any kind of wealth and giving it away in ways to help others, they use that to really feed their voracious appetites for their vices. In this case, for Lily, it's feeding her ego. You best damn believe that she's doing this because it validates her in some way, some shape, some form. She's addicted to the money and the lifestyle it provides for her. Instead of earning her money in an honest way, she would rather put aside her dignity, and she would rather go down the path of darkness for wealth that she can't even take with her.
I can't really explain it. I get like serotonin, like from when people are like, oh my God, you're that on the internet. Sounds crazy.
I know, and I know you're saying that to me right here, but I don't believe that.
Really?
No.
I kind of love like ruffling feathers a little bit and people getting a bit like agitated by maybe the fact that I'm messed up. People think I'm like so sad and stuff like that, but that could not be like further from the truth. I don't think people realize like how happy this makes me.
And she doesn't even realize at some point that fountain is going to run dry. Because one of the things that a lot of folks don't talk about is the fact that these women who get themselves involved in these kinds of OnlyFans adventures and all these propositions that's being given to them by their viewers and subscribers, is that it gets worse and worse. In fact, she talks about that later on in the video.
Any scary message on here, that like something that frightened you or made you feel unsafe?
Some people's requests are sometimes way too much. Like I had literally last week, like, can you put a bag over your head and pretend to be like suffocated? It depends obviously on the request, but stuff like that I probably won't do. I don't want to encourage it. Like that, for me, I don't think that's doing help.
What if someone offered you $1 million to do it?
I probably would bend my morals for that, yeah.
At what point does the acquiring of money not matter anymore? At what point is selling your soul not worth it anymore? And see, that's the thing about the dark side and the darkness. It pulls you in. There is no base. Once you get to the ground, there's even more to go. You're willing to drag your own self straight down to the pits of hell for pleasure, prestige, power, and money. When you start going that far down, the only thing that can save you is the light of the world. And you know who that is, our Lord Jesus Christ. And it's funny because many people will deflect that. They'll laugh at you. They'll say, man, you're crazy. You're a religious fanatic. But there are some levels of darkness that are just really way too deep for anyone to get into and think they're gonna come out unscathed or that they can come out on their own. And this young woman, the choices that she's making is gonna drag her into a place that if someone doesn't reach out to her, this woman's gonna be lost. 100 men and now 1,000 next? For what at the end of the day? Money, power, prestige, greed, ego, vanity, lust? What's the price of your soul worth?
I do feel a little bit like embarrassed being like, Mom and Dad, I'm f***ing 100 guys.
Why?
I guess because it's not really what my parents would have wanted me to do. Doesn't mean to say my parents are like gonna disown me or hate me or anything like that. I just don't want them to think less of me. There are days where I'm sat here on a Sunday, I am feeling a little bit more lonely. My friends have all got boyfriends. And I'm like, I see a comment and people are like, God, no one's ever gonna marry you or something like that. And that can definitely like make me feel a little bit like, oh God, have I chose the wrong career? But like, I just totally love my job. But just like people talking about your body constantly, how you look. Every day someone like picking at you. I think that's the hard part. And also just the pure fact that people think so much less of you.
Yeah.
Before anyone ever meets you, they already perceive you to be something. I think now I'd find it hard to make friends in terms of like real friends that really just see me for who I am and not like, like porn star online, whatever, this kind of like persona.
Yeah.
Also just like all of social media, like everyone is preying on your downfall. Banks don't allow you to bank with them. Your Instagram's trying to get shut down. Like, it's just like the little things that's just like, no one likes what you do. And everyone just thinks less of you.
I found this part of the interview very interesting. How, again, we start off saying that we don't care about what other people think. We're going to do what we got to do. We're going to do what we want to do. And then in the next breath, we have her admitting that she is, of course, affected by what other people say and think. Here she's talking about her worries about being able to settle down, what any normal man is going to ever think about her, or to be able to take her seriously or not. And that's how you know that everything that she's standing on right now and saying that doesn't matter, that she loves what she's doing, she loves her job, she loves being promiscuous, she loves making money off of this, you can tell right there it's a lie. Because if you truly loved it, it wouldn't matter what anybody else says or thinks, particularly some man. I mean, she could go off and be with any one of these schmoes that's paying her to degrade herself. But of course, when you want to settle down, that's not enough for her. She wants someone who's obviously willing to look the other way and skirt their own morals to be with someone like her who decided that she doesn't have any at all. She has no scruples and she is immoral. And the sad thing about it is, again, let's not scapegoat the 100 men that she's been with and the 1,000 next that she's signed up to have in a few more months. This is the state of our society. It's men and women that we are expected to be accepting of this, to look the other way, to congratulate it, to extol it. It's absolute insanity. She admits herself to being infected by what other people say, but the true protective mechanism isn't to change, but it's to deflect so she can keep going. She's in too deep.
Would you refer to yourself as a feminist?
Yeah, I at the end of the day, doesn't feminists mean like you just want equal rights for boys and girls? And yeah, I do what I want and I do it because I enjoy it. I think there are obviously some women that maybe go into it because they have to or need the money and stuff like that, or they're kind of coached into it by men. But my personal experience is I've only ever felt empowered by the fact that I'm making money off something that I think guys will do anyway. Like guys are always going to sexualize me, so I may as well try and profit off that bit.
Now, we're talking about the profile of Lily and just breaking down where the state of someone's soul is when you're making this kind of decision. And by the end of this video, I definitely want to talk about how do you get yourself out? How do you break free of this if this is something that you are caught up in any kind of way or capacity as well. But we can't just blame her as a woman. Again, there are 2 people in this, or 101 people if we're really going to get down to it. There are 101 people who are responsible for what's going on, and that's the men as well. And the profile of these guys that she's talking about that she's actually going to be having this experience with is actually pretty sad.
What would be the demographic of guy that would recognize you normally?
I'd say more of a, it's going to sound mean, but more like a chubby, younger guy. And not ones that you'd find in Chelsea, I don't think.
One of the things it points to is the fact that, look, we are living in a pornography-addicted society where, statistically speaking, the average age that girls and boys are being exposed to this material is 11 years old. And that number is falling year after year, particularly the more that young people have access to social media and more. There have been statistics that have come out in the last 2 years or so that have said that men in her own generation, 18 to 30 years old, 60% are lonely. A majority of these men are not dating. They are not able to even get into relationships. More and more men are turning to pornography for self-pleasure and to combat these feelings of being alone, not being able to be with an actual woman in a romantic situation or relationship. So it's crazy that no wonder they're jumping on this opportunity to degrade themselves and to be with a woman who doesn't even have any self-respect. She doesn't have self-respect. You damn for sure know you don't have any either.
I never really think about things before I do them, so I've just kind of do them and then think, oh, was that okay? But yeah.
One of the men participating agreed to speak with us after having spent his allotted 5 minutes with Lily. He had flown in from Switzerland just for this.
So I came last night and I'm leaving basically after. I went for the authentic experience.
Okay.
I had pie.
Pie,
Yeah,
British pie,
pub,
pie and mash.
Yeah.
How long have you known or been a fan of Lily Phillips?
Since the beginning, I would say.
Did you ever think you'd be able to have sex with her?
No, never.
And today you did?
Yes.
Were you nervous this morning going in there?
Yes, especially when I saw all the guys, the cute.
However, we were able to speak to another man as he left the Airbnb, although he seemed shaken by the experience. How are you feeling?
It's not something that I'd normally do, but I saw it and I thought, might as well.
Yeah.
I think I saw it and I just thought, fuck it, might as well just do it.
Like, how long did you get with her?
Well, she said 5 minutes, and then halfway through, she said she hadn't started the timer, so she said like 5 minutes from now. She was all hot.
So you got to like...
Yeah, just an extra time.
Do you know how many guys had gone before you?
No idea. No idea.
Yeah, like, is that what...
Well, look, yeah, but I don't really know idea. I just thought...
Are you happy you did it?
A little bit. I'm just a bit nervous, if anyone find out. My dad would kick me out straight away.
And in hearing so many of them who were open and willing to talk during this documentary, you can see that not even they were okay with doing what they were doing, but they were doing it anyway, just for the experience. Many of these men are likely addicted to pornography. They have low self-esteem. They have issues with being able to connect with other people, with women. And it's crazy because when it comes to statistics, experts believe that addiction to pornography is actually underrated. There aren't enough studies that actually give a realistic number, and because our society glorifies it so much and okays the consumption of it and even eggs it on and glorifies it, so many men probably don't even realize that they are addicted to it. And those that self-report being addicted are at a lower number than what's actually probably realistic.
I actually wanted to wait till marriage at one point.
I just used to think it was a real special thing. As soon as I actually didn't have, I kind of realised that it wasn't special. And also that I just really loved it and really enjoyed it, and that I wanted to do it way more often.
I thought that besides just the end of this video, that this part right here was one of the most unfortunate. So Lily talks about having wanted to wait till marriage and wanting to sort of save herself for that special someone that she would end up creating an entire life with. But she ended up losing her virginity and she enjoyed it and figured, you know what? Why wait? What's the point? It's valueless. It doesn't mean anything. So she went from having her first experience to being promiscuous and then seeing a pathway to becoming basically a prostitute online. She went from an extreme of wanting to be able to save herself, wanting to be chaste, to having the sexual experience, to giving herself to men for free, and then to doing this now as a commodity, as an actual job. What the hell went wrong? This is where I say that we've got to hold the L as Christians, because there's such this crazy emphasis and pedestalization put on virginity in a way that makes it very disordered. Virginity, particularly of a woman, never of a man's virginity. We never talk about why a man's virginity is of value as much as it is of a woman, because let's be honest for a second, nobody wants to be with a man who's been with every girl in town or in the city or who has a high body count himself. That's absolutely disgusting. But female virginity in particular is dangled as though it's some kind of a prize to be won. Virginity is not a prize, but the greater beauty in virginity, if we want to talk about this from a virtue standpoint and really talk about it from a truly Christian standpoint, is not just the virginity itself, it's the entire act of chastity. Because chastity isn't about purity culture, it's about virtue, true virtue. Chastity becomes a virtue, and you get virtue from your prayer life, from living the life of a true Christian. Chastity is rooted in the virtue of temperance. By definition, it's all about how we use our sexuality in a way that's not only good for us, but good for others as well. It's about respecting ourselves and respecting the other people we are in relationships with, and orienting sexuality and sensuality to God. That is what true chastity is. That is the definition of chastity within the Catholic Church. And notice how it doesn't mention anything about virginity or necessarily pedestalizing it. In fact, true chastity upholds the beauty of what sex is. It doesn't demonize it. And the fact of the matter is that when you start talking about chastity, chastity is in relation to the state that you are in life, whether you're single or married, or if you're someone who has vowed yourself completely to God to serve Him and His church. Chastity can be obtained by anyone, even those who have been promiscuous in the past. That's why there's such a danger in this extolation of virginity, because in that respect, if someone could have had this conversation with her and sat her down to say, look, you had a bite of the forbidden fruit, honey. You went and you had sex, you lost your virginity, okay. But that doesn't make you any less of a person. Virtue can still be had. Forgiveness can still be had. And you can get back on track to honoring your body, honoring yourself as a woman, and still being able to offer a beautiful experience with your future husband that's still special to the two of you, despite the fact if whether you both are virgins or if you both come into the marital relationship already having had a sexual experience. If we can talk about chastity in that way and stop pushing this idea of virginity as this prize, that would change so many hearts. And I think about it in the way that virginity is talked about in the red pill space. You have so many men in that space talking about wanting to be with women who have low body counts and virgins and all that stuff. Yet on the same token, a lot of the podcast bros themselves are not men of virtue. They're not men who are waiting and holding and saving themselves for that one special woman that they want in their lives. They are not men who uphold the same standards for themselves as they're holding up for the women that they want. And a woman who's truly virtuous, a woman who's truly practicing chastity, a woman who is a virgin as well, is not going to want some man who's ran through. Like, let's be honest here. Let's talk about that. There's so much to unpack about this issue and this argument over virginity and chastity that I think it warrants its own video. I kind of talked about it in another video here on the channel, so if you want to go ahead and get into that conversation, make sure that you go ahead and check it out over here.
I think other people in the industry definitely look down on me for doing this, but I think at the end of the day, people forget that it's also my fantasy, and this is also something that I'm really enjoying and want to do and have wanted to do before I was even in the industry. Like, guys are always going to sexualize me, so I may as well try and profit off that bit.
I mean, not all guys are going to sexualize you.
I don't really know. I think I mean, I'm not, maybe not all guys, but a ton would. I mean, I'm like a part of the problem. It's so hard because like doing extreme stuff like this is not normal. Like, and I think then guys are probably going to expect girls to maybe be as strong as me and sleep with this many guys and take it up the ass or do stuff like that isn't real life sex. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around.
But you do enjoy doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people forget it is my fantasy and this is what I enjoy. And so it's hard because you're like being selfish, but you're also not helping the situation.
I think that this was a very interesting tidbit in the documentary, because if we really look at what addiction is, when we say that would be the definition, to make the decision to partake in something that we know at the core is not good for us, but we do it anyway. And we do it to fulfill our own passions. You know, this whole idea of this promiscuity and these decisions that Lily's making for herself are rooted in so much of her own addictions. Her addiction to attention, her addiction to wanting to be validated, her addiction to wanting to be seen, her addiction to her own lust. And then she's constantly, again, making this excuse to make it okay and acceptable. But at the end of the day, we see what she truly is and see that mask fall when she has a literal breakdown after all of this went down.
How are you? Lily offered to show me the aftermath of their stunt.
I mean, it stinks.
What does it smell like?
Like brace yourself. Brace yourself.
Oh, holy
I guess it. You actually can. Is that real?
Yeah, he's not good with smells.
It's not for the weak girls, if I'm honest. It was hard. I don't know if I'd recommend it.
Why not?
I think if you're a different type of girl, it's very like, it's kind of like being a prostitute in a sense of like, it's just a different feeling. I don't know how to explain it, like...
It's not like just having sex with someone.
Yeah. Just one in, one out, like it feels intense.
Like more intense than you thought it might.
Definitely. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Just take
1 minute.
And that right there is it. That right there is it. I just think that it's so sad to watch her realize what she's done and realize that she made a terrible mistake. The mask fell. And before us, we see a woman completely degraded, the self-deprecation that she typically takes on. We see a woman who is spiritually broken, mentally broken, and is masking it behind a smile. So why this conversation? Why here on this channel? What's so different than everyone else's approach? Well, that's the thing. When you're coming back to your faith, particularly as someone who may have grown up as a Catholic, you're a cradle Catholic, you know all the rules, you know all the things, right? You grew up with this, or you're someone who's converting and you're seriously thinking about like what God truly wants for you versus what the world wants. This is one of those things that I think is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, because we've been tricked by society to see sex and free sex and to see hypersexuality and promiscuity as a thing that's okay, that's acceptable. That this is what makes you an adult, that makes you truly bond to one another. And what I say when it comes to the right place of this in a relationship or how you deal with others is the following. It's like, yes, it is bonding. Yes, it is something that brings you closer to someone else. But intimacy is more than just the physical contact that you have with another person. And in fact, having intimacy as far as sex is concerned, physical sex, what we call fornication in our faith, is actually pretty dangerous. It's like playing Russian roulette with your heart and your emotions. It leads to so much trouble. And for every person that wants to say that you cannot have a relationship with someone unless you are having sex with them, I say, well, yeah, sure, it's bonding, but where's the last person that you slept with? Why the hell are you in my face? You bonded so much with them that you're not even seeing that person anymore. So kind of when you sit down and you really think about the conversations that we have in the world around fornication, around premarital sex, it can be obliterated when you really look at it from the faith standpoint. Why does any of this matter? Well, when you're truly taking the choice and the decision to take your faith seriously, you got to understand and know that our God, our Father in heaven, has told you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and there's so much more to you than giving this intimate piece of yourself to someone else. And it's so hard to break the addiction that lust has on the heart. Whether you are addicted to actually watching content, and if you are addicted to self-pleasure, if you're addicted to fornication, that's a hard addiction to break. It's a hard, deeply rooted sin to overcome. And what is sin truly? Sin are those things that take us away from the light, that take us away from God and that closeness and intimacy with Him. I think that's where we go wrong in much of society when we talk about Christianity. I said that a little bit earlier. If we could grasp the message that sex is beautiful, it's intimate, it's private, it is the co-creation that we have with God, it is the unity between man and woman, complementary to each other, the ability to bring new life that surrenders yourself openly, bodily, spiritually, emotionally, that should be held in higher regard once you decide that this is the life you choose, the sacrificial life. And it's so important for you to learn how to embrace that and see it differently. And, I'm no expert on this, but I've done a lot of study on Pope John Paul II and his work, Theology of the Body. If you do not know what that is, you need to look at his work, Love and Responsibility. But that can be a very heady read. It's very thick. That book is very, very much a lot to get through. And the language can be tough for some people who may not be well read and stuff like that. So the person who does the most dedicated work with this stuff is Christopher West, and you need to take a look at his channel, Theology of the Body, break it down to see the beauty of our bodies. This is what, for me as a fitness professional, cracked open this key to see that the body is sacred. Our entire faith is one rooted in the body. We talk about that so much, the body of Christ. The church is the body of the Christ. You are a part of the body of Christ. He gave his body. He became one of us. He became man. He became flesh because the body is sacred. The two becoming one flesh that's talked about not only in Genesis, but repeated again in the New Testament. It's sacred. The body is sacred. The unity of two people intertwining and becoming one is sacred. And the world wants to twist it up. The devil wants to take it and make you a slave to that body. He wants you to be a slave to your urges and your passions. You see, intimacy is to see into me, not just in a physical way, but in the deepest emotional, spiritual, mental way. That is true intimacy. And crossing the lines into giving yourself away physically to someone else is not intimacy in its greatest aspect, because there will come a point in your life that you may not be able to be intimate with your spouse. Then what are you going to do? Leave that person, go into pornography and go ahead and pleasure your urges that way? Cheat on them and go into adultery and infidelity because you can't be with that person physically? See, that's the importance of chastity. It's not just about shunning sex and just seeing it as something bad and disgusting. No. If you know that the person you are with can hold their urges and hold their regard and love for you in a high place, that they can control their passions around you, the one person that they want to be completely intimate with, then it's so much easier to trust that they can do it with other people. If you're going to walk this life and call yourself a Christian, if you're a person who's coming from a place kind of like Lily, where you had the taste of the forbidden fruit and you went down the rabbit hole. You got lost along the way. You figured, hey, I call it the case of the F it. F it, I'm already out here. F it, I'm gonna do it. F it, it feels good. The Lord has a different message for you. That's not the way. And it doesn't take you having to be a virgin to be chaste, to put your sexuality and your sensuality as a child of God, as a man and a woman created in his image in its rightful place. It's never too late, but you gotta overcome so much. When I hear this young woman's story, I worry about her. She is so young, 23 years old, completely spiritually misguided and unguided. And the crazy thing is that people on the outside of our circle will watch this and call me a zealot and a fanatic and a crazy because I have these passions about telling you that there's more to the body than just what society tells us. But the truth is that is the truth. And it really is going to take a lot for you to step outside of yourself to believe that, particularly as a revert, particularly as a convert who's been out there in the world. You've given yourself already over to Satan in so many ways that's been detrimental to you spiritually. The road to chastity is a challenging one. Chastity is a virtue. It is a complete fruit of the Holy Spirit, the fruit of temperance. But you can overcome. It's going to take some work for a lot of you. But you can overcome how? The sacraments, confession, receiving the Eucharist as often as you can. You know, for me, it's daily. But even if you can't do daily because of your schedule, having a moment to sit and receive spiritual communion. He lives in you. You've already consumed him. You've been to Mass on Sunday, and if you haven't, come back home. He's waiting for you. But living a prayerful life every single day, getting on your knees and asking the Lord for his forgiveness, for his strength, for his discipline, for the ability to just stay in his grace. And to know that it's not going to be an easy road. You're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to go back into old patterns and habits because the devil wants your soul. But this way, in the way that she's living, not it. And if you are in the throes of that, not it. Even if you are in a modicum of that. Okay, you may not be with 100 men in a day or 100 women in a day, but you are fornicating with the person that you're in a so-called loving relationship with. You think that it's okay that just because you're in a committed relationship that having sex with that person is okay. You may not marry that person. Who knows if that commitment is going to end, but you're so willing to freely give yourself, not because you truly believe that that's right, but because you want to fulfill your own pleasures. You got to test drive before you buy. There's so much that goes on with this that we're all in the throes of, whether you realize it or not, to some nth, to some degree. So I'm going to call you out. You don't have to be going to this extreme, but there are ways that you go ahead and you skirt what the church teaches around chastity, around loving oneself and giving oneself to another that you are completely okay with. But what are your thoughts? This was a tough one for me to know how to tackle because my channel here, I know some of you probably came for the controversy, but you're gonna leave with some virtue and a message. And my main goal here is to inspire you to think deeper, to go deeper, to truly have a devotion to our Lord, and to truly have content that's going to change you, make you think, make you get on your knees and pray and ask for forgiveness, to repent and to proclaim the kingdom of God. So what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and post them down below. And I did have a video where we talked about how to really embrace chastity in your life, how to come back to your faith when you've already stepped away and what that looks like. And if that's something that speaks to you, you know it's something that you struggle with, you're trying to get more on that devout road, then I want you to go ahead and check out this video right over here. I'll see you over there.